Spinal muscular atrophy, while it's a rarely diagnosed disease, some 6 million Americans are carriers of the gene that causes it. Helping us to bring awareness to this disease is Dr. Nina Champagne, Division Chief of MUSC's Pediatric Genetics Department. Good to have you with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So what is the typical age that one gets diagnosed with this disease?
So prior to 2018, it would be at the onset of symptoms, and so infants would typically present at about 4 to 6 months of age with muscle weakness, deterioration in their respiratory skills, and then progress from there. There are some milder forms that are harder to pick up, and they would present in later in life, when people started having difficulty walking or losing motor skills. But as of today, all states in the U.S. are doing detection through newborn screening at the time of birth.
So that's part of the battery of tests. As soon as the baby is born, that is one thing that they look for.
Correct.
And I just think it's interesting, sort of the disparity between the number of carriers that we have in this country versus the actual number of diagnoses. So what is it that causes some babies to be born with spinal muscular atrophy and others to not?
That's a great question. So this is what we call an autosomal recessive condition. And what that means is that every one of us has 2 copies of every gene. And so carriers have 1 copy that is not working, but that other backup copy is functional and prevents the disease from presenting itself. And so they're silent carriers, that 6 million population.
Yeah.
But when you have 2 parents that are both silent carriers and they pass out their genes, if they pass both non-working copies to their child, which is a 1 in 4 risk, then those are the individuals that are going to develop symptoms. So both copies of their genes are not working.
I see. Is this something that is particular amongst a certain ethnic group, or is it across the board that anybody could potentially be a carrier?
It is really across the board, actually. Anyone can be a carrier.
Oh, I see. But there are treatments now, which seems to be changing the entire trajectory of this disease.
Yes, it's been really, really exciting to see the treatments emerge. And so, that's the reason that we're now doing newborn screening, because we know early detection and treatment just completely changed the landscape for these children.
Yeah.
And so we started having some treatments in 2016. It was a way to enhance some of the residual protein to preserve the nerves and the muscles. But in 2019, we got gene therapy. So we're actually able to give that gene back to the individual and produce the protein that they're missing.
Oh goodness, so when does this treatment occur? Is this after birth?
Yes, as early as possible. So those that have the severe form, we want to treat them by 4 weeks of life.
Oh gosh, 4 weeks. So what do you do? Is it an injection? Is it?
It's a one-time, 1-hour infusion that gives a virus that's inactivated, but delivers the gene to those motor neurons that need that protein for survival.
Wow, and just one time?
Just
one time for the rest of their life?
Correct.
It's been essentially eradicated from their system.
Yes, as far as we can tell. So we're still early in being able to provide those treatments, but those babies are now hitting milestones and developing typically, which we would have never seen before the advent of this treatment.
That's really incredible. I mean, it completely changes one's life. Is it safe to say that if these treatments are so successful that you could potentially eradicate this disease altogether?
Well, I think we'll still see it because it's in the population, but we now have, a mechanism to, handle the symptoms that are related to that and ameliorate, those symptoms from occurring.
Do you think that this same type of application can be used for other things? I mean, it just seems like the world of possibilities is open.
Oh, absolutely. We have a great number of genetic conditions that are having different gene therapies in development. I think we're now up to 6 that are, approved by the FDA. Sickle cell disease was a condition that had 2 gene therapies approved in December of this past year.
Oh.
And that's also on newborn screening. So again, that disease is going to have a completely different outcome than what we've experienced in times past.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Is treatment expensive? Is it covered by insurance? How does that work?
That is a great question. It is very expensive.
Yeah.
As you can imagine, bringing these technologies to market is not an easy thing, and it requires lots and lots of investment. But insurance companies are paying for it because it is FDA approved, for this indication. And there are companies that, do a lot knowing that these patients need this therapy. And so they have a lot of patient support programs, to make sure that those who need the treatment get the treatment that they deserve.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Champagne. Really interesting stuff.
It's my pleasure.
Lots of technology and
yes, it's exciting times
new frontiers
in genetics. Thank you.
It is. Thank you. We're back after this.